Good morning. Okay, now we'll start learning sponsors. Year of learning Isaac and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister Chaya Rachel Bas Isser. Friends of Leonie Meisman, Leah Sabra Bas Chanach Zundel. Friends of Melaskotsky, Moshe Zelig Ben Mordechai. Martin Littman and family in memory of his wife Malka Chana Bas Pinchas. A month of learning, Perry and Jill Meltzer in memory of his mother, Malka Bas Baruch, and his sister Golda Leah Bas David Halevi. Tova and Leo Zimmer in memory of her mother, Henya Bas Beryl, and her father, Aaron Ben Yosef Mordechai. B. Pizer in memory of her husband, Harav Yisrael Chaim Ben David. Stanley Presser in memory of his mother, Leah Bas Yehuda, his mother-in-law, Golda Bas Leber, and his wife, Ruchel Mincha Bas Moshe. Rabbi Dr. Yankee and Malki Honig, in memory of his mother, Rabbanit Hensha Ita Bat Chaim Yehuda. David and Sharon Karpel, Rabbi Tzvi and Robin Karpel, in memory of David and Tzvi's father, Zev Moshe ben Shlomo Yaakov. Carol and Josh Sanborn, in memory of her father, Yehoshua Shia ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen. Sarah Alpert and family, in memory of her husband, Harav Tzvi Lipa ben Hillel. Josh and Carol Sanborn, in memory of his mother, Chiena Bas Aryeh Leib, and his father, Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch. B. Pizer, in memory of her mother, Razel Bat Shammai. Leo and Tova Zimmer, okay, again, in memory of his father, Tzvi ben Ezriel, and his mother, Yocheved Bat Yaakov Menachem Mendel. A week of learning by Chaim Aber, in memory of his mother, Freda Matel Bashmayahu. Charlie Gelfenstein, in memory of his wife, Menucha Sarah Bat Yechiel Michel. Michael and Judith Poretsky, in memory of his brother, Chaim Tzvi ben Gershom. Mark Linder, in memory of his father, Chaim ben Yecheskel Elimelech. Barbara Hollander, in memory of her father, Shmuel Shlomo ben Yehuda Baruch. Judy and Jack Schiff, in memory of her mother, Chaya Chava Bat Menachem Mendel. Today being the 21st of February, we have a day of learning by Sandy and Jack Friedman, in memory of her father, Nathan ben Moshe. And that is it for today. May Hashem is having Aliyah, Krank Rafia Velti Yasher Shema Tzliya, and Machol B'nai Yisrael, a good Gaben Shtia. Amen. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to actually pick up from the bottom of Kaf Chet Amud Beis, where the Gemara starts. Okay, our Mishnah said that the father can declare a Nazirut for the son, the mother cannot. Okay, that was the Reisha, the beginning part of our Mishnah. Okay, and then it went on to some other material which we'll touch base on afterwards. But the Gemara starts Ish in, right? The father, yes, or the man, yes, about Isha, lo, but the woman, no. My Tama, what's the reasoning? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Halachna, but he ben Nazir. So again, Rabbi Yochanan clearly is indicating this is part of the halacha Moshe Sinai, okay, vis-a-vis the status of terms for and the whole structure of Nazareth. All right, Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina. Okay, Amar, what does he say as we now go to today's daf, which is Kaftet on the top? Amar Reish Lakish, in the name of Reish Lakish. Okay, right? Kadei lechancho b'mitzvot, in order to educate him, I'll say properly, in a sense, with the mitzvah. Okay, so we have one who says it's a halacha Moshe Sinai, Rabbi Yochanan, and basically it's Rabbi Yossi who is saying no, it's basically a Rabbanan. Okay, in the name of Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish must be niftar already because of this situation. That could be the possibility. Anyway, the point being, but one says it's a halacha Moshe Sinai, which is almost more than just a doraita, in a sense. Okay, but part of that, the other it's Rabbanan. That's our first difference. Let's go on now. Ihachi, okay, if we're going to say, according to the second opinion, that it's the Rabbanan, okay, that it's chinuch mitzvos, right? Afilu ishanami, then even the woman should be able to, declare the child the Nazareth, right? Kasavar, ish chayav lechanech beno b'mitzvot, ve'ein isha chayavet lechanech et bena. Okay, why? Because maybe he only said the father. Why? Because he believes that the father is the one responsible for teaching his son mitzvot. The mother is not responsible for teaching the son mitzvot. Okay? Bishlema Rabbi Yochanan. That's acceptable to the view of Rabbi Yochanan, who said, remember, it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and every time the Gemara is going to repeat this. So we're going to see this a number of times, 6, 7 times, this whole argument back and forth. Okay? Bishlema Rabbi Yochanan de Amar halacha hi benazir. That's acceptable, Rabbi Yochanan, who says it was a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, right? Amtu lahachi. Now that we've reached this point, what are we saying? Beno. And his son, yes. Bito lo. His daughter, no. Ela l'reish Lakish. Okay, so here now we come back to the main, Rabbi Yochanan's main protagonist. Reish Lakish. Afilu bito. Then it should also apply to teaching mitzvot to the daughter. Okay, even though we knew that generally that was the mother's responsibility in the time of Chazal, okay, and even later. Kasavar beno chayav lechancho. Because why? Because Reish Lakish is of the opinion that in his son he has an obligation to teach him. Bito eino chayav lechancha. A daughter, he does not have an obligation to teach her, implying again, suggesting that the mother is the one who has the obligation in that situation. Okay? Bishlem Rabbi Yochanan de Amar halacha ibn Azir. That view is acceptable when we hold by Rabbi Yochanan that it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Ahachi b'nezirut and b'nedarim lo. If that's the case, we would therefore say, since he holds that it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai associated with nezirut, then we can say, yes, it applies to Nizirut, but b'nedarim lo, it does not apply in terms of nedarim. Ela l'Reish Lakish. But if we're talking the view of Reish Lakish, that it was says l'chancho b'mitzvah, right? Afilu nedarim nami. If you're going to teach him about Nizirut, and we all understand that in a sense Nizirut is also a kind of neder, then therefore shouldn't he also have the obligation educationally, the Rabbanan, to teach him with regards to Nadarim. Okay? Lo mabaye ka'amar. No, his argument might be that this is stated in a lo mabaye literary style. Okay, namely, lo mabaye b'nedarim delete le nivu. No, we do not have to teach about the issue of nedarim, because there is no situation of what I'll use yesterday's translation, self-denial. Okay? Ela afilu b'nezirut de'it le nivu. Rather, particularly with nezirut, where there is situations of self-denial, afilu hachi chayav lechancho. Even then, he has an obligation to educate. So the Gemara comes back. Bishlem el Rabbi Yochanan de Amar halacha hi benazir. That view is acceptable. Okay, that explanation is really acceptable vis-a-vis the view of Rabbi Yochanan that says it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai regarding Nizirut. Hainu dikatani. That's why then our Mishnah then taught Micha, if he objected, shemichuhu krovav, or his family members objected, right, etc., etc. Ela the Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, okay. But regarding Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, Amar Reish Lakish, who said in the name of Reish Lakish, Kol kiminehon krovin da'aminan le, any kinds of things that the other relatives might say to the father, lo tigmarei mitzvot. Wouldn't you say then that there are situations where he needs to learn the mitzvot?
They have no right.
They have no
Okay.
right to say,
Oh, no, okay? Because the implication is they do have a right to say.
The Mishnah says they do, but if it's chinuch,
But if it's chinuch, then they don't have a right to mish in, okay? To interfere, okay? That's the point, okay? Okay, in other words, do they have or I could phrase it a little differently, do they have a right to tell the father which mitzvot you need to educate him and which mitzvot you don't educate him? Okay, all right, let's go on. Kasava, why? Because he's of the opinion, kol chinuch de lo chashiv lo nechale, because any kind of education that the father may feel is not significant or important at this point, it's not comfortable for him to teach it. Bishlema l'Rabbi Yochanan. This seems appropriate again if we take the view of Rabbi Yochanan, the Amar Halacha Hi Benazir, who held that it's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai regarding Nazirite. Mishum hachi megaleach. That's why then our Mishnah also taught that if the child objects by shaving, all right, and what happens? Okay.
the child shaves his head.
Right, if the child shows his objection through an act of shaving, what happens? Va'avid hakapa, and what he winds up doing is rounding the corners, okay, of his head. Ela Rabbi Yossi, but regarding Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, Amar Reish Lakish, who says in the name of Reish Lakish, Kadei lechancho b'mitzvot, who again the Gemara continues to give us, reminding us of this, of each one's stand. Okay, we can talk about that later if we have time. Okay, that it's education. Ha ka'avid hakapa, but here we're saying he's doing rounding corners, which is clearly a isur deraisa. Okay, what happens? Kasava. Okay, maybe that's because he's of the opinion hakapat kol harosh midrabanan, that the trimming, the cutting, and rounding of the corners is only a rabbinic.
Shave your whole
Okay,
shaving the whole head
Right.
is Madroban.
right, is a rabbinic issue. V'chinuch midrabanan, and also the requirement of education is a derabanan, and therefore, what I might argue is va'ate chinuch derabanan udache hakapa derabanan, and the requirement of teaching rabbinically education may put off or overcome, or however one term we want to use for dache, okay, the rabbinic issue of shaving the head and rounding the corners. What happens? Again, we say, Bishlema Rabbi Yochanan. This kind of argument might be viable given the view of Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar Halacha Hi Benazir, who again says all of this, all of these things that we've been discussing are included within the overall halacha l'Moshe Sinai, vis-a-vis the status of a father being able to declare the son the Nazir.
including the korbanos.
The whole
Yeah,
geschichte.
but now it puts the
We're going to get to that momentarily. Okay? Achi megaleach. Okay? All right. So here in that case, we're saying that regarding the shaving, what happens in that case, might take korban. Okay, the father would bring the korban. Ela Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina, and then we might say in that situation, since it was the father whose statement made the child the Nazir, maybe we're going to make that parallel and say that's the reason that he has to bring korban. We'll see. Ela the Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina ma Reish Lakish, in the name of Reish Lakish, kadei lechancho b'mitzvot, whose rationale, okay, for allowing the father was simply education. Ha kamai techulin la'azara. But then in that case, it's possible if that was the situation that he would argue, the result would be that he would be bringing a non-consecrated animal into the temple precinct, which is forbidden. Kasavar, chulin ba'azara, lav da'oraita. Maybe it's because he's of the opinion that bringing chulin into the temple precinct is not Torah mandated, but it's only the Rabbana. Okay, we go on. Again, Bishlema Rabbi Yochanan. That's understandable given the perspective of Rabbi Yochanan. Da'amar halacha hi benazir, who again continues to maintain his view that it's all part of the halacha l'Moshe Sinai aspect. Ahachi ka mitame. But what about then the situation if one becomes tame? Okay, namely the one who has the Nazarite vow on him, which implies the youngster. Okay, Maite korban sipurin v'achal kohen milika. Maybe then we might say that he could bring the offerings of the birds, okay, and the kohen can eat it, although the slaughter of the birds was done through malika, okay, which we're going to see is going to be another question. Ela, the Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina, but regarding the perspective of Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina in the name Amar Reish Lakish of Reish Lakish, ha'ka'achil mevela. But wouldn't then the Kohen be eating something inappropriately shechted? He would be eating nevela. Kasava Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda. Perhaps it's the perspective of Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda. The ein shchita la'of min haTorah, that the requirement of shchita does not apply to the birds as a Torah mandated requirement, and that malika it would be sufficient. Okay. V'chulin ba'azara lav da'araita. And also that he would hold that bringing a non-consecrated animal into the temple precinct is not Torah prohibited. Okay, what happens? We go on. V'savar Rabbi Yossi hachi. So the Gemara asks a valid question. And does Rabbi Yossi, even in the name of Reish Lakish, really hold such a view? Notice two items here now. One was the issue of chulin ba'azara. The other was the other question of shchita versus malika. Okay, what happens? Vahat Tanya. And what do we teach here at this point? Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda omer. But we have a braita where Rabbi Yossi clearly states as follows: Minayin lechatat ha'of shehi ba'a al safek. Under what conditions is it that we have a chatas that is brought using a bird? Okay, right, and it's brought on a questionable act, okay, of guilt, and therefore it's an asham talui, okay, in this case really, she'einat ne'achelet, that is not eaten. Talmud Loma, we have a pasuk that tells us, v'hazav et zovo l'zachar u'lenekeva, okay, citing the pasuk and regarding to the zav, whether it's male or female. Makish nekeva l'zachar. We make the association between a female and a male. Ma zachar mevi korban al vadai. The same way that the male will bring a animal chatas, that's the korban, the animal chatas, on a situation where it is a very clear and explicit sin, let's use that word, right? Okay. Afnekeva. So likewise, the female, Mevia Korban al Havadai, she would only bring that in regards to a clear, explicit sin. Umazachar Mevi al Hasafeh. And the same way that a male may bring a Asham Talui on a questionable act or questionable sin, Afnekeva Mevia al Hasafek. So there too, a female would be bringing a Asham Talui on a questionable sin. Uma zachar, okay, and whereas the male, mimin shehu mevi al havadai, mevi al hasafek, from the same variety that he would bring for a explicit sin, would bring for the asham talui, okay, on the questionable sin. Afne keva mimin shehi meviya al havadai, meviya al hasafek. So likewise, a woman, okay, would be the same variety of animal. In this case, we're talking about a bird that she would have to bring on an explicit sin. She would have to bring an asham talui based on that same animal as well. Okay, so what happens? A ma zachar mevi korban v'nei achal, and so this braita continues. And whereas when the man brings this offering, it is eaten. Afne keva mevi'ah korban v'nei achal. So likewise, when the woman would bring such an offering, it too would get eaten.
Even though it's a suffix.
Okay, even though we're saying it's in the status of an asham talui and not vada. Amarta. And so you would say, as we go over to the top of the next amud, lo, no, that's not the case. Im amarta bezachar, if you're going to say vis-a-vis the male, shekain isur echad, that there was a singular or a single act, a single prohibition. Tomar b'nekeva sheshnei isurim. Would you use the example with that of the woman, where there are two, okay, different prohibitions? Mai shnei ha'isurim. What might be? Why do you say that there are two prohibitions here? Lav isur nevela v'chulin ba'azara. Don't we have a situation here, as we've just described, that there were two acts? The Kohen eating would be the nevela aspect.
Eating the bird.
Without by malika as opposed shchita, right? And the second bringing the chulin into the temple priesthood. What happens?
And here, those psukim are clear it's a deraisa.
Okay. So what happens as we continue? Matkif la Rav Acha Barei de Rav Ika. So he's challenged, okay, by Rav Acha, the son of Rav Ika, the following. V'dilma machaye. Okay, perhaps it's a question of the obligation. Right? Okay, namely what? Ale mishum de mitchaze ketrin isurin midrabanan. Okay, and therefore we're saying here, it's as if it would appear to be a situation of two prohibitions that are rabbinic. Okay, so the Gemara goes on. Lemek tana'ai. Can we say then that this argument is similar to an earlier Tanaitic argument when we have the following? Ad matai madir et beno benazir. Up to what point can an father, I'm going to read in, okay, make the declaration that his son be a Nazareth? Ad sheyavi shtei sa'arot divrei Rebbe, until the child shows hair in the genital area, which really implies that he is considered, in a sense, an adult. Okay? Divrei Rebbe, that's the view of Rebbe. However, Rabbi Yossi b'Rebbe Yehuda Omer, he says, Ad sheyagia la'onat nidarim, until the child reaches the age where he, and I'm going to use la'onat nidarim here, is not simply a time period of vows, but he reaches the time around 11, maybe 12, where he's aware of the significance and meaning of making vows, okay, in his life. My lav t'na'ai, isn't this then a similar machloket tanaim, where we could argue the Rebbe Savar halacha hi benazir, that Rebbe would hold, as Rabbi Yochanan later held, that it's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai associated with the whole gamut of Nazarut, right? Va'afal gav dehagia la'onat nidarim, and even though the child may have reached a time in his life that he's aware of the significance of vows, madirle, the father can make the declaration for him, va'azil ad demaite shtei sa'arot, and then go until he reaches puberty, adulthood. V'Rebbe Yossi, Rebbe Yehuda da'amar, whereas Rebbe Yossi, the name of Rebbe Yehuda says, ad sheyagia la'onat nidarim, until he reaches an age where he's aware of nidarim, savar kadei lechancho b'mitzvot, who held that it was regarding to educate him in mitzvot. V'kevan denafik mirishute, okay, and since then he is no longer in that aspect, okay, of vows and things like that, under his father's authority, to lo mechaye, he would no longer be obligated, all right? Or the father, since the child reaches that age, the father no longer has the obligation to instruct him in mitzvah. Can read it both ways, okay? Amre, no, we'll say the following, lo, that's not the case. That's not how the argument goes. The kuli alma halachahi benazir. No, everybody really agrees that it is a situation where all of these,
Not all, the one where the father may impose.
right, that the father may make this declaration, okay, and the application to the son, okay, applies, right, to the halacha l'Moshe Sinai, okay.
Can that be at any age?
No, just said, we just said. You just said, if he reaches an age, there was one argument that it's adult, reaches puberty. There was another argument, no, that he reaches an age where he's aware of the significance of vows, which we said was more or less 11 or 12. Okay, right? So what happens? V'hacha b'mufla hasamuch le'ish k'miflagen. No, they were talking about an informed minor. That's how I'm translating mufla here. Okay, who is close to adulthood. That's what they're arguing about. Rebbe Savar, Rebbe is of the opinion, mufla hasamuch le'ish, that an informed minor that is close to adulthood, the Rabbanan, okay, is the Rabbanan va'atya da'oraita, the dachya rab the Rabbanan, and comes a Torah mandated item, and it therefore overcomes or pushes aside rabbinic. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, he must be of the opinion, mufla hasamuch le'ish da'oraita, okay, that the informed minor who is close to adulthood is Torah mandated, ve'ebayat ema. And if you want, I would say it this way: the kuli alma kadei lechancho b'mitzvot. That maybe I'm going to flip it now, the entire opposite argument, and hold by Reish Lakish's view, that maybe we're talking about the fact that this could be done by the father is an educational technique, Rabbanan. Okay, and therefore, if that's the case, right? Ema de kuli alma kadei lechancho b'mitzvot, umufla hasamuch leish the Rabbanan he, and an informed minor who's close to adulthood, we're talking about it being a rabbinic situation. Rebbe Savar ate chinuch the Rabbanan, v'dache mufla hasamuch leish the Rabbanan. And Rebbe then must be of the opinion that educational elements defined by the rabbis can overcome the issue of the informed minor close to adulthood, which is also a rabbinic issue. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Amar, whereas Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad sheyagia le'onat nidarim kasava, that it's up to the point where the child actually becomes aware of the significance of doing vows, right? Lo ate chinuch d'Rabbanan v'dache mufla hasamuch la'ish, and that therefore we say that the rabbinic requirement of education does not come and overcome the status of the informed minor reaching adulthood. So what happens? Right? So let us say the following, says the Gemara. Lemahani Tanai, Kahani Tanai. Shall we say then that these Tanaim, their argument is similar to these other Tanaim? Titania, as we learn elsewhere in a break. Maaseh Rebbe Chanina, Shehidiru Aviv Benazir. Once was an incident where Rebbe Chanina, with Rabbi Chanina, that his father declared him a Nazareth. Okay? When he was I don't know if I would say a little kid, but close to Muflach. Okay? What happens? Veheviu lifnei Rabban Gamliel, and they brought Rabbi Chanina before Rabban Gamliel. Vaya Rabban Gamliel, Bodko Leda, im hevi shtei sarot im lo hevi. And Rabban Gamliel was going to check out whether he had reached puberty or not. Okay? All right? Which, by the way, already tells you part of the other issue there. Anyway, we go on. Rabbi Yossi Omer, and Rabbi Yossi says, was he going to check his physical status, right? Leida im higia le'onat nidarim im lav. Okay, in order to know for sure whether he had reached that age of awareness of vows. So what happens?
Is that different than puberty?
Yes.
It could be. It could be a year earlier. Okay. All right.
So why do you want to check on both?
He did one or the other, we're not sure.
Okay. All right. That might be the case. All right. So what happens? Okay. So Rabbi Chanina now is responding to Rabban Gamliel under these circumstances. Okay. Whatever. Okay. Amarlo. He says to him, Rebbe. Okay. At least he addressed him like a mensch, appropriately. All right. Smart kid. Okay. Al titzta'er. All right. Don't bother yourself. Lebodkeni, to check it out. Im katanani, if I am a minor. That's why I said it depends on the age. Eheyeh b'shvil Abba. I'll become a Nazareth for my father. In other words, he declared, I'll take it up. Okay? Im gadolani, if I've reached the age of majority. In other words, I'm already eheyeh b'shvil atzmi. I'll do it for myself. Okay. Amad Rabban Gamliel v'nashko al rosho. Rabban Gamliel stood up and kissed him on his kepala, right? And he says, right, the following, right? Muftachani bazeh she'moreh halacha b'Yisrael. I am sure that in the future, this young man is going to be somebody who can teach halacha to Jewish people. Amru, and right, and then others say, Lo hayu yamim muatim ad shehora hora'ah b'Yisrael. Okay, days didn't pass that quick before he was eligible and considered knowledgeable enough to be able to teach. In other words, to render halacha. Okay, okay, we'll finish up. Bishleim Rabbi Yossi for Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, that's understandable, giving the view of Rabbi Yossi for Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar ad sheyagia le'onat nidarim, up till the time of awareness of mitzvot, of nidarim, Hainu de kamar, That's why he would have said, Im katan ani ehiyeh b'shvil Abba. If I'm a minor, I'll do it for my father. Ela the Rebbe. Okay, but according to the view of Rebbe that we saw, the Amar Ad Sheyavi Shtei Sa'arot, okay, who reaches puberty, what happens there? Ve'im gadol ani ehiyeh b'shvil atzmi, and if I reach adulthood, if I'm an adult, I will do it for myself. Okay, ha b'rishutei da'avur kayam. Okay, do we say that he's still under his father's control? Let's stop there and we'll continue tomorrow. I didn't really get a chance to prepare that far. Okay.
The motion is seen is different than.
Okay. Okay, I'm suggesting to you that one could see the concept of halakha emotion in almost longer than a Torah where the text is written in the Torah. Why? Okay, Michael, take care. Why? Because halakha l'Moshe Messina means he gave the Torah. Not only did he recite the text of the Torah, but he gave the Torah Sheba'al Peh immediately along with it as an explanation. So you have what I'll call a juxtaposition of Torah Shebichtav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. Okay.
Plus a third category of halakha l'Moshe Messina.
Okay, and given that situation, that's why I say some might consider a view of halakha l'Moshe Messina might have more.
It's a third category. It's the same status as written, but it's part of verbal.
More expounded.
No. God told you to wear tefillin. Okay? How do you know how to make tefillin? God said put otofos here and an os here. How do you know what it is? So there is a halakha l'Moshe Messina that spells it out. The black ink and the square corners.
That's what I was saying.
But that's no, but it's more, yes, Heshi, but it's more than exposition. You understand?
As if it were written in the Torah.
Okay, and that's why some, I'm not,
Against one.
no, I wouldn't say it's not against.
It's
not
even an
against.
explanation. It's just like the Torah, which is written down. The Torah also says you have to put black ink on the scrap paper with film. It's not written. Right. So it's not an explanation. All of what we're learning now, this guy thinks it goes this way, this Anna thinks it goes that way. That is debating. Okay. But a Torah emotion is not going to argue it because you don't have the Masorah.
But you said some.
If you have the Masorah, you can no longer
Well,
argue.
wait a minute, everybody thinks that way, or just some people?
No, everybody.
No.
Halakha l'Moshe Messina is halakha l'Moshe Messina. There are discussions as to whether a given point is. See, you can't say it's a halakha l'Moshe Messina because I had a dream. You have to learn it as a halakha l'Moshe Messina from your rabbi, you learn it from his rabbi, etc. Now somebody else
may not have that much thought.
learns. So he can challenge here, Reish Lecher, obviously they don't have. Once you have it, you can't argue. I doubt. Look at the value. Everything said about it is that. Always good. Okay, that's it. Write it down. My name.
What's this going on tomorrow for? Meetings. The alternative slate. Apparently, they would like to present their views and explain to people in the congregation why they are running the slate that was proposed by supposedly a nominations committee. Which consists of one person? With that mosaic? All of a sudden, this thing came up all of a sudden, yesterday. When's the election? Sunday. Sunday morning at the meeting. That's when they're gonna announce the winner. I don't think so. I don't know. The election, you gotta go back and look at the. I think it starts Thursday. At the thing, at the bulletin, and see what it says about the vote. I don't. They do. They put their lunch in there. And wouldn't work. Wouldn't work. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you tell them. You tell them.